recover from drug addiction in the early stages of their lives. Today, I'm going to inform you about Lily's Place and how they help make those first few weeks a little more bearable for the newborns and their parents. Let me tell you how Lily's Place got started. Lily's Place is a new organization that was only a dream about 2 years ago. It started when 2 nurses at Cabell, who were working in the NTU, which is where the drug-addicted babies are kept, they felt that there was more that could be done for these babies, that they weren't doing enough, and they wanted to make a difference. So they both went on the computer and did a little research and found a facility that was designated for these babies out west. And they, the next day, bought 2 plane tickets and flew out there to see this facility. When they got there, they really liked what they'd seen. It was very informative, and they knew that they needed a place like that here in the tri-state. So when they got back, there luckily was a building that was donated to them by the Darby family. And the renovation started then. The community helped, everybody pitched in, got the facility ready for these babies. Each family got to pick a nursery to decorate. So on one of 16 nurseries, it's all different. So now, after a lot of hard work, dedication, helping hands, and a year later, Lily's Place now sits proudly on 7th Avenue in Huntington, West Virginia. Their mission simply states that Lily's Place provides medical care to infants suffering from prenatal drug exposure and offers education and support services to families and communities to help recognize and manage the needs of substance abused babies. In its efforts to provide immediate short-term care for these infants, Lily's Place provides a non-judgmental support for mothers, offers counseling and support for families, and assists Child Protective Services in determining the best placement for the infants. Now that you know how Lily's Place got started, let me tell you a little bit about the drug-addicted babies that they take care of. They term these babies NAS babies. That simply stands for Neonatal Abstinence Syndrome. They are drug dependent after birth. They don't like to say addicted because this wasn't a choice for them. They are dependent because of the choice that their mothers made. The drugs affect a lot in their bodies. It affects their central nervous system, so everything is thrown off. They can't really function normally and peacefully. It's awful, but it affects their CNS and it affects their stomachs too, so they are all the time upset and they need one-on-one attention. These NAS babies show signs that a normal, healthy baby would not. So after they are born, if the mother did not voluntarily already tell the doctors or the nurses that she has used, then after the baby's born, it'll show certain signs and symptoms. The major sign and symptom that they show is tremors. These babies shake like a leaf. And sometimes it'll be just an arm, and then other times it can be the whole body. They have a very excessive cry. Yes, all babies cry, but these babies, they cry constantly, nonstop. They could be fed a clean diaper, warm and cuddled up, and it's still just not enough. They're going to cry because they're in pain. Like I said earlier, the drugs affect their stomachs, so they have a lot of vomiting and diarrhea. They have a very increased muscle tone. These babies are stiffened out all the time. It's hard to change them. It's hard to put their clothes on. It's hard to put a diaper in between their legs because they're so stiff. They have a decrease in sleep. They don't sleep as much as they should, which leads to a lot more crying. They have a hyperactive mora, which is just known as a startle reflex. They are startled very easily. They have jerks and convulsions. They sweat. They have fevers. They yawn constantly. They sneeze a lot. They have nasal stuffiness. They have a very high respiratory rate as well. And they have poor feeding habits, which induces the vomiting as well. And they have an excessive suck, which is like somebody who chews their food excessively. They suck on a passy excessively, like if they're smacking the passy, it's like they can't get it enough. And then once the signs and symptoms have shown after being born, the doctors will take the umbilical cord that they keep at the hospital for a week, and they'll go and test it. It'll come back positive for drugs, but if the mother doesn't voluntarily tell them, this is what I took and this is how regularly I took it, then it's kind of hard to get a plan of care for this baby and treat it the way that it needs to be treated. So it's a lot of trial and error for these babies. After being diagnosed, the road to recovery begins at Lily's Place. Lily's Place provides a low stimulus environment and special handling. One of the things that they do a lot of is swaddling, which is like a baby burrito. They're all swaddled up in their blankets. They do this because the baby can't do three things simultaneously. It can't breathe, it can't eat, and it can't control its body at the same time. So by swaddling, we're controlling their body for them. That way they can focus on the breathing and the eating. They do the C position a lot for these babies. It's comforting for them, and it gives them the ability to relax, which is just basically knees to the chest. So they're in a C position that will cuddle them around the stomach when you're holding them, or if they're laying in a crib, you put them in a C position with blankets that's rolled up behind their back. We do a lot of swaying, not bouncing for these babies. Bouncing affects, it gets them too overstimulated. So you have to sway with them. They do a vertical rock, which is just the C position, up and down really slowly, up against a blank wall, so that it's not too overstimulating. They do a lot of patting on the back or the bottom. That can be comforting, or it can have the opposite effect and just tear them up and start crying. So it's a lot of trial and error with these babies as well. Their feeding is something that has to be taken into consideration. They need to have a certain amount of food and formula to grow properly, but where their stomachs are so upset, sometimes they don't get the needed nutrients that they need to grow properly, so they'll throw it up, and it's just a battle with them every day to try to get the feeding correct. Lily's Place also controls the environment factors, such as the number of caregivers that take care of the baby. In a hospital, there might be many patients in there, and so the caregivers, there's many of them, and that's not good for the baby. There's a lot of soft voices. You can't talk in a normal tone in there. You have to whisper when you're in the facility. The lights have to be really dim. There's night lights in all the rooms. We don't use the overhead lights at all. They can't handle that either. There can't be any music, any TV, no loud noises. And the caregiver must also be calm. If the caregiver goes in there and they're worked up from something that happened an hour ago, the baby's going to feed off of that, and they won't be able to calm down. Also, the walls in the nurseries have to be blank. No decorations, nothing that's too overstimulating. And the clothes that you wear when you're there, they have to be a plain solid color. They can't have any like graphic designs or anything that's bright and loud, because that's also too overstimulating for these babies. Along with the special handling and low stimulus environment, Lily's does a weaning process and a scoring process. The weaning and the scoring go hand in hand with each other. The scoring will go off of the signs and symptoms that the baby portrays, which is what I talked about earlier. The crying, the decrease in the sleep, the tremors. Each sign has a different amount of points. So if they have tremors, it might be, per se, with 2 points. And you go down and you check all the boxes that they have for that day. And at the end of the list, you'll add all your points up. If their points average an 8 or below, that's good. Then they can be weaned onto the next step. But if their points add up to an 8 or above, anything above an 8, then they need to stay on the same step. They cannot be weaned. And this might take, for some babies, a week, for others, a couple days. It just depends. The weaning consists of 9 steps. It starts with step 1, which is the highest dose, all the way up to step 9. It'll start at step 1 with a higher dose of methadone, usually is what they use. And it's a higher dose at a more frequent time. Once they go on to step 2 and step 3, it's a less dose at a less frequent time. And then once they've been completely weaned, they do a 72-hour observation. If the baby does okay, then they're able to go home. And a lot of times in that 72-hour observation, they have the mother stay with them. That way they can monitor how the mother's going to be once they get them home. And then sometimes they're weaned too fast and they have to go backwards a step, which is okay. Lily's Place doesn't stop here. They do more than just help the babies. Lily's Place will help the parents of the babies get on the right path. They do this by getting them into a facility to help them recover. They try to help find them home, a house. They help find them a job. And they do everything possible to help them get off these drugs. They don't force it upon them. It has to be something that they want to do. And they can refuse it. And they also like to give the parents supplies for the babies. That way, even if the baby doesn't go home with them at that certain time, the mother will be able to visit, and they want them to be able to have the supplies to change the diapers and feed them for the time that they do have with them. So now that you know a little bit more about Lily's Place, the work that they do, the babies they take care of, and the process of treating those babies, maybe next time you hear or know a pregnant woman who is addicted to drugs and needs a little help, you can send her to Lily's Place, where they're trying to make a difference one baby step at a time.
Nice job.